Live and switch to camera 5. Okay, so welcome to Sprint 41. Thank you everyone for coming today. Wrong way. Just to say we're a bit out of sync with London Show and Tell this week. They've got a lab today, so we're doing an offline recording. And London did theirs yesterday, so if anyone wants a link to it, I'll pass that around after. So yes, welcome everybody. Just a quick reminder of the team. We've got 3 new people that have joined in this last sprint. So Claire Mitchell is based in London and she's a user researcher. We've got Becky Chetwood, who's a recruitment lead, and there is a story behind this photo apparently. Watching Benji's show and tell, apparently it was a random image from Google, so I'm not sure Becky's totally comfortable with it. And we've got Karen Cleal, who's joining as a transformation lead. So just a reminder of all our team, across both locations in London and Leeds. So in terms of our sprint goals this week, we completed a GP practice pop-up lab and did the analysis, which Ian is going to talk about later, so I won't go too much. We did some prep, so we're doing a lot of thinking at the moment about how we actually get our product into beta. And we did some prep work on this, and we've broken down a number of tasks and prioritise which are the kind of riskiest things that we need to do first. So we've still got some work to do on that, but we're trying to drive towards getting something into beta. And also Si's done some work actually getting the design into beta, but it's into a beta format. But that's ongoing. We completed the user Zoom analysis, so the sprint before we did some unmoderated testing online, and we just needed to complete the analysis of that. We've also done a design of a minimal viable product that Si's going to come on to later. Just a reminder, the whole team actually got together, so across both locations we all got together and did a full team day. It was our 1-year anniversary around now, so we all went down to London. We did a 12-month retro where we just planned out month by month what went well, what not so well, and what we can do better. And it was actually really refreshing to see that we started in a lot of things being unhappy at the beginning of 12 months, and over time we feel we're getting on a lot better, and things looked good towards the last few months. We also did a task where we all got put into program groups, and we actually did some program planning, which some people were very happy about. And this is a short output. I won't go through the detail, but these were broken down by different work streams and what we need to do over the next 12 months. Yeah, and this bottom one was the one I was working on, which was the program one, and it had a very busy 3 months, which was quite alarming. So I'm going to pass over to Joe to talk about what we've done in beta preparation.
Thanks, Dom. Yeah, okay, so Dom mentioned we're trying to get some stuff into beta. We've done a load of research and a load of prototyping, and we think we've got like a valid concept, and we want to get that into beta so that we can learn more about it. What we feel we need now really is to get it in front of people who are in the moment, so people who have a stomachache right now or have a headache right now. That's difficult to do through things like user Zoom analysis or even going to pop-up research. It's a fairly limited chance we're actually going to speak to someone who's in that moment right now. So we talked about various ways we could do this. We could get it in front of these people, and there's a few different things we could do, but getting it onto beta.nhs.uk seems like a really good way of doing that. We already have traffic coming from choices, people who are in that moment with those conditions. It also ties in with the idea that we need to show a bit more delivery progress. We need to get some stuff out there. So one of our aims the next sprint is to get something onto beta.nhs.uk. So as Dom said, we've been doing some thinking about the things we'll need to do to make that happen. A lot of the work we've been doing up till now has just been us in our team and with the wider NHS UK team working amongst ourselves to make some of this stuff happen around getting it onto beta. We're going to have to go and talk to some other people outside the team, and it is just as simple as having a conversation with a few people, but we need to start doing more of that. So I'm just going to go through a few of the things we're thinking about. So we have to define the MVP, we have to figure out what's the thinnest slice we can get out there that gives some value to users and allows us to learn more about our product. Asai is going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. We need to think a little bit about performance. So the pages that are out on beta.nhs.uk at the moment are flat content pages. They could be heavily cached. We're going to be putting more dynamic, data-driven content out there, which can't be cached so much. So again, this is as simple probably as having a conversation with Tom Barrett from the Choices team who deals with performance there, about his thoughts on it. But it does have a bearing on whether we're going to continue to make, say, API calls every single request, or whether we're going to cache data locally overnight and so on. So there's some thinking there to be done about that. The stuff that's on beta at the moment had to go through some kind of security audit to be allowed to be put up there. Again, this is probably a conversation with Pete Spence. We'll go and have that conversation, see what we need to do to make sure everyone's happy with the stuff we're putting out there. We need to make sure what we are building is clinically safe and sound, and we've already talked to Sam in the team about that. We'll have further conversations with him to make sure the stuff we're doing is all clinically safe. And we're trying to hire a clinician into our team in Leeds part-time, so we've got a couple of leads on that we're going to follow up. Data is one of the biggest things that hurts us. We know this from all the work we've done over several years at Choices. The data is kind of all over the place, so we need to just think about where we get the data from, how we store it, and how often we refresh it and update it. If it's a beta service, is it okay to have data going out of date over a period of days and weeks, or do we need to refresh it on a regular basis? Just some questions we need to answer there. At the moment, we're going to go with the data from the Choices syndication feeds and some of the other Choices APIs that in turn get their data from ODS. So we're trying to take the best data we can find and pull that into our service. We'll need to test what we build on different devices. We'll follow suit with what's been done so far by our friends in London and getting the work they've done on beta.nhs.uk, tested in a number of devices and browsers, and we should be consistent in that. We'll need some hosting. So from a user's point of view, they need to see beta.nhs.uk as just being one service, one seamless service made up of but behind the scenes it's made up of different components that might be hosted in different places. We'll talk to the Choices Ops team about how we set that up and make that happen. We'll need some monitoring over that hosting. Again, we'll follow suit probably with what's been done so far in London. We'll need analytics. We'll need to be able to track journeys through the whole service, not just separate analytics for, like, say, the symptoms pages and the service pages. We need to be able to look at analytics across the piece, so we'll talk to Kenny about that, and I imagine we'll be putting in Web Trends and Google Analytics and Hotjar, and anything else Kenny thinks we might need to put in there. But it's important that we get that quantitative feedback on what we build. And likewise, we'll need some qualitative feedback. It brings us back to the whole point of getting some stuff into beta, is that we get more feedback on it and we get some input from real users who are in that moment. So there's the current feedback mechanism that's on beta.nhs.uk now. We might use that, we might have to extend it, we may have to use something different. We need to figure out what it is we're trying to learn. So those are some of the things that we are thinking about as we move into beta, some of the little things we'll have to solve, and we'll be aiming to tackle those over the next couple of weeks. Thanks very much. We're on to Si talking about the MVP.
Cheers. Good go there. Right, so I've promised myself I'm going to do this in 4 minutes. It's a music reference, never mind. So quick reminder of what being agile is. It's not less about a methodology, it's more like a frame of mind, but here's something someone said to me a couple of weeks ago. Get anything out the door as soon as possible, we can iterate it later. Wrong. It's get something that adds value out of the door quicker. So it's not just about, like, you know, there's a thing, kick it out the door and then we'll work our way upwards. People use agile as an excuse to put any old stuff out there. I'm just going to underline that to reiterate that. Something adds value out of the door quicker. Do you want to stick something out there that people look at and go, why have you done that? Oh, it's all right, we'll make it better later. Do that and get it up to a decent level. And we think we're at that level and we want to keep doing that, but we need to get something out to beta, which Joe's just talked about. We've pulled together this, which some of you may recognise from the previous few weeks, which is the connected service sort of prototype as it is. This is sort of where the design work is at the moment. There's a couple of things in there that are a bit shonky, like this page over here, and you know, there's a bit we need to understand over here, ding, ding, ding. But we kind of thought, well, there's a lot of stuff in this that we could strip back and make an MVP out of. we could really pull some of this stuff down and get something out there a bit quicker. So we kind of like thought, right, what are the bits that we can kind of sweat? You know, there's call to action on there, there's some messaging on there, and you look at that. Do we need that in there? There's a bit of research. Address or postcode, can we get away with some other stuff? Call NHS. And we thought, what can we do to really, really pull it back? So we pulled it back to something that's a little bit more simpler to make, and means we can get like that valuable thing out the door sooner, that can give us that base to kind of build up and iterate. So some of the things that you might not see, I was pointing out, things like, instead of entering a postcode and address, what if we just go with entering a postcode? In research, that's what the development prototype does, and people are quite comfortable with that. If we build the address stuff in later, that could be an iteration. We've pulled the accessibility stuff out, you know, sort of quietly, and not in a way that we want to do that, you know, because we think that's hard work. We think there could be something really nice around that, and we want to do that properly. Things like times and directions, what can we do to like lessen the load on our Google calls? So we've got really sort of pulled it back, but when you look at it like that, it still feels like there's a mass around that, and you can sort of get an idea about how it could connect into other stuff. So these are the things that we're going to look at to make sure that it's a solid MVP. A little bit of work to make sure there's a clear call to action from the symptoms page. At the moment, we've hacked the pages that have been done by Hinrich and Kim down in London. We want to make sure we work on that so that really works. It's been pulled out when people find it and see it, they get it, but we're doing a little bit too much at the moment, kind of saying, oh, do you want to click on that? Looking at how the beta style goes transactional will be a big part of that. So the pages I just showed you are in the alpha style, air quotes, and going into the beta style means we need to do something to make sure that the thing we're doing sits in a suite alongside the symptoms pages that are currently out there at the moment. Can you get there by yourself is a question on one of the pages, which, yeah, the intent is right, but people aren't understanding, so we need to do a little bit of sweating on that. Nothing massive. Content design would be a big help. In everything we've done, if you can't get there by yourself, at the moment we say go to NHS 111 just for the sake of like pulling together lots of stuff quickly. Do you really need NHS 111 if you're looking for a comb for headlights? Not really. What you need is a shop where you can go to do that. But then that sort of opened up into the idea of like the thing where could we bring into that deliveries, pharmacies delivery and stuff like that. So there's, you know, already we're tapping into some of the real flexible stuff we can do and connecting people to other services they might not have been aware of. What are access needs? So there was a big list there that kind of said like, is there anything we need to bear in mind when we show you the details? And I've said before, when you go back, there's to the previous stuff we've said, Choices sort of boots this stuff on at the end. It kind of says, oh, so you need a wheelchair ramp. Oh, right, well, we'll ask you that now we've given you the results. We've had a lot of positive response to putting this up front from people in that position, and we're doing it in a way that isn't intrusive. But we need to know more. It doesn't feel like there's enough understanding around this, and this could be an awesome research piece. Actually, it will be an awesome research piece because we want to go and look at that and get it right. It's a bit of research we can then push to the rest of the NHS services. The BSI guys that I saw last week, they were just like, you know, they were waving their hands in the air at this sort of thing. They're like, that'd be brilliant. What do users need to see if they want more information for a place? Like I say, there was that shonky screen, needs to do a little bit of work around that, but we'll get that done in the next sprint. The word places, is it the right word? Content design would help with that. Currently open versus all the local things. People have said they really like to see things that are open, and they're sort of cynical or want to be reassured that the things we're not showing them exist. We just need to do a little bit of work to make sure that works a bit better, but nothing massive. These are all like little things we just need to sweat. And one of the best things at the moment, Joe and some other people across the NHS have sort of been having natters about how we can dive deeper for data to help reduce the results for the user. So basically, how can we go away, find some information that can really show the pharmacies or the services or the places that matter, not just all the pharmacies, which is like what we're really striving for this. And like by doing the prototype and getting this in front of people is asking the questions that's starting to get us some answers, and it's brilliant. And the thing I find is that once we do that for pharmacies, that could, and it should open the door for all sorts of other services to be hooked into it as well. And if we haven't got that data, then it sets up the argument, it sets up the case to go and get that data so we can use it as information. Ultimately, that's what connecting service is. We're asking the questions and finding what is there and what isn't there. And like I say, if someone could find me a content designer to work with, that'd be great. We would move together a lot faster. We're borrowing Kim and Hinrich and a little bit of Izzy down in London. But if we bring someone into Leeds who can be a content designer, it'd help us, one, sweat the content a bit, but also I think kind of extol the value and virtue of having a content designer up here in Leeds, get people understanding that. And when you look at some of the stuff we were doing in the beta planning, there's so much stuff we want to do in there. And it needs lots and lots of content designers. The sooner we get content designers immersed into what we're doing and the culture and why we're doing it, the easier it'll be in the next 3 to 6 months. And there you go, my favourite moment, Justin Timberlake doing that star jump at the end of the video. Thanks.
Ian, it's you.
Thanks, Si. So,
Speak into the mic.
Yeah, first time I thought it was... Right, so how do we know what to put in the MVP? There's an awful lot of user research we've been doing. So recently we've gone out to a GP surgery just to have a chat to a few patients and staff about what they thought of our prototype. First thing is, though, at the last show and tell I said we've done this big survey through User Zoom, and we had this thing called the System Usability Scale, and we had problems working it out. Well, I managed to get it worked out, and we scored 81, which is really good, because this has been around for about 20 years, and the general view is if you score under 60, you really need to do some work on your interface. If you score over 80, you're probably doing really, really well, and between 60 and 80, there's some work needed. So I'm really pleased that we came out with that, and we will be continuing to use that scale throughout. It's only 10 questions, dead easy to get people to fill in. So this is the surgery we went to. It's in North Leeds, Meanwood. They were really, really helpful and really accommodating. So they helped set up a little desk for us. They let us put a banner up and a little poster. And some people came up to us to have a chat, but actually we just walked out and kind of grabbed people. But it's a really nice big area, easy to go and get people. And the staff were incredibly welcoming and helpful. So we're thanking them profusely, because we're probably going to want to go out there again. And this is us doing it. So a couple of tablets, cup of tea to keep me going all day, and we took some cleaner and hand wipes, because we realised we were giving these tablets to ill people and we didn't want to infect an entire room around or ourselves, so it was kind of so that worked quite well. Ooh. Hello.
Oh. Power on the laptop? No.
No, we've got power on the laptop. Anyway, what the slide was saying is that even though it was pop-up, in government we're not allowed to call it guerrilla, which I think is really good. We call it pop-up research, because we do some preparation beforehand. So the preparation we did, we still wrote a topic guide, although it wouldn't be what you do for a full usability lab. It was about 10-11 main points that we wanted to go through with people. We did a pre-visit to basically meet the staff there and tell them what we wanted to do with their patients and how we were going to do it, and the questions we would ask their patients and the questions we weren't going to ask, and some information that they thought about their patients, like can we ask like demographic type questions and things like that. So they were incredibly helpful with that. And we also made sure that we tidied up the prototype, so everything worked and that people couldn't get lost, and it made sense.
Sorry, it's coming back.
It's kind of lost in the ether.
Sing us a song.
Oh no, you don't want me to sing.
Send it to Mike.
No, I will never live that down on this project. The first time they handed me this, and I thought finally we've solved the sound problems, and I thought it was a mic, and they all started laughing and going, no, it's a clicker. I thought clickers looked like TV remotes. But anyway,
Well filled.
that's it. Thank you. So, in all, we spoke to 24 people, 17 patients and 7 staff, including one doctor. I think we got the doctor for about 4 minutes. He told us quite a lot of stuff, good stuff in that 4 minutes. patients were anything from 4 or 5 minutes before they go, oh, I've been called, and went, to a lot of patients after that then came back and then spent 10 minutes with us. Of all the people we went to speak to, only 2 people said go away. Other people were more than happy to kind of have a go, so that was great as well. It's kind of things we found. This has come up in the usability labs and the user Zoom survey and other things that we've done. People are not using the internet for health. They'll do social media online, they'll do banking online, they'll do shopping online. As soon as you say about health, they want, oh no. The idea of doing a health transaction online was a little bit worrying for them. So that's clearly something that we got to work on as a project overall, NHS digital overall. How do you get people thinking the internet is something for health? They like the idea that, you know, going somewhere else first, not just the GP. In this case, we were giving them pharmacies, but the concept really, people generally understood the concept, what we were about. Get people to think about alternatives to the GP. Stuff like self-care as well, that came up quite a lot. But a few people said, yeah, I've got a first aid kit, a medicine cabinet, all of that kind of stuff. The staff were really into this idea of the connecting to services, because they said one of the big issues was the number of people who want GP appointments who don't really need GP appointments. There's other places they could go first, so they were really supportive of what we were doing. That was doctors, receptionists and nurses, particularly receptionists. So they really liked the idea. When people clicked through and came to some of the NHS Choices pages which had more details on some of the symptoms, they go, oh yeah, I've been there before. So when you said to them, have you ever been to NHS Choices, have you ever used an NHS, they went, oh no, even though they'd done some kind of internet search for health. But as soon as they saw it, they went, oh yeah, been there. So there's an issue with the branding, because people aren't recalling the branding, they are recognising it when they see it. But if you go, where would you go for health, they're not going NHS Choices. 111 was mentioned, but not terribly complimentary. The green button, which is the call to action button, generally was not seen. It's either it wasn't seen or it wasn't seen as being a button. So as Si said, that's something we're kind of working on, that call to action, how to design it, where to place it. It was disappearing in the content a bit. This was interesting. When we handed people the tablet, not everybody started scrolling. So we did the introduction, please explore it, do whatever, tell us what you think, you know, whatever, you can't break it, please have a go. And a lot of people just went, yeah, that looks cool, and went, no, you can do stuff. So I wasn't sure, because people had been on their phones before, whether it's an issue about how we introduce it and do the pop-up, or whether people hadn't used a tablet, or whether they were afraid of breaking it, or what, because they were fine on their phones, but when we handed it, they're going, ugh. So we'll have to kind of think how we do the pop-up stuff.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Could it be because it just made me think of something for our own screen designs, which is, could it be because the tablet's bigger, people think that's the whole page?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to explore that. Yeah. Maybe we get people to have a look at it on their phones next time. But yeah, because it was really weird, because they could. But whether they were just afraid they might break it, or we've got to design something at the bottom to say you can go below that. But thank you. Yeah, that's
a really fascinating point.
Yeah. The thing about how would you get there, could you get there by yourself? Everybody thought it's me driving myself, not a friend, not walking and stuff like that. So that's a bit weird. We've got to think about that with distances and things when we present the listing at the end. When people saw they could also search by accessibility issues or something, we're thinking of introducing, like, does the pharmacist have a hearing aid loop, is it wheelchair accessible, etc, etc. People really like that idea. Whether we can get that information from pharmacies is another thing, but the idea of having that, people really liked. And 2 or 3 said, oh yeah, I can never get into that pharmacist because of the steps. Everybody could do the postcode search, they were used to it from shopping and things like that. Some people said they'd like town put in there as well, but that came out as really easy. Interesting with postcode search, people do not use spaces, do not use uppercase, they just kind of put it all in as one thing. A lot of people said, oh, this is from when I'm away from home, because I know where my local pharmacy is. Interesting, they're getting the idea to people, this will help you find somewhere when it's late at night. And just therefore it might be somewhere far away. But some people said, oh, I know all my local pharmacists are. We go, yeah, that's near your house between 9 and 5 when they're all open. This was an interesting one. I've seen this come up before with kind of shopping stuff. We were only showing them 2 pharmacies. So if people thought they were being cheated, show me more that are open now. So it's this weird thing that maybe it might be 3 or 4. People don't want a whole list, but 2's not enough. So it's like this is kind of like the Goldilocks thing. What's too hot? What's too cold? What's this right? It's that kind of thing. Some of the pharmacies are missing, so some people said, oh, you missed out the one near the supermarket, that's in the supermarket, the one in the independents hasn't come up, so there seems to be an issue with some of the third-party data. Google Maps, we had a link where people could open a map, see where the pharmacy was. Everybody loved that. Quite a few people said, oh, could it actually open up in the actual Google Maps app rather than as a web page. A few people said to us that they used Google Maps for sat-nav in their car when they were driving. So of all the map things, nobody said, oh, not Google, I want to use Bing Maps or stuff like that. No, Google. People thought very much into distance, travel time. This is only 3 minutes away, 5 minutes away. People assumed it was by car. Some people said, just do distance and I'll work it out in my head how I'm going to get there and how I need to get there. A few people said you need to make us aware of what a pharmacy can do, because a lot of people think of a pharmacy as being a shop, not a place you can go and do consultations. Some pharmacists you can do appointments with. Some people said, oh yeah, and there's the online services that they do as well, like they can deliver. So there seems to be an issue about wider awareness. Interesting, people who are not English, foreign, actually thought pharmacies could do more, and in Europe pharmacists can actually prescribe stuff that in the UK a doctor has to prescribe. So people who were European were really understood that pharmacists can do more. That should have been taken out. That was a previous slide. Sorry. Thank you.
Very nice. Alright, okay. Hi everyone, I'm Steve, I'm a developer working with these guys. Where are the notes? Because I'm not doing the slide notes. It would be kind of useful, but it doesn't matter.
It's really straightforward to do.
I'm also going to need to get to a website to do a bit of a demo.
If you carry on, I'll make that.
Yeah, okay. Alright, so I'm going to talk to you about something called an isochrone today. So what is an isochrone? Next slide, does that still work? Oh yeah, nice. Okay, so what is an isochrone? It's basically a line that connects points that share the same property. So for example, on a map, quite commonly you have an isochrone with a distance. So from a point, you will see, and I'll show you some of these in a moment, you'll have a wiggly line around the point, and that'll be a 10 kilometre isochrone. So that's just a very brief overview of what they are. So why am I even looking at this? Well, I'm looking at this because we started to have a look at the results, and the service that we're getting the results from at the moment, so the pharmacies particularly, gives us straight line distances from a point. That's all well and good until you've got a river in the way, or a mountain, or something like that. So isochrones allow us to provide, effectively give us a net that we can throw over and find services that are within that net that we can then present to people. So we can actually give people the services that they can access. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is to make things, present services that people can access. So we've talked about the accessibility list at the beginning. Using an isochrone, we could use this to further enhance the accessibility of that. So this is what you see on choices at the moment, and please don't take this as a bashing of choices, but this is so I've searched for Harwich, which is here. I don't know this area of the world particularly well, but we can see that there's a big river there, estuary I guess, and so I'm looking for pharmacies in Harwich. I've got 5 results over there in Felixstowe. Pretty sure that swim isn't something that you want to be doing, but that's useful. and you know, it's basically done that. So this is a 10-kilometre line from Harwich, and it's just caught the top 10 in that circle. Don't know why I did that, but brilliant. That's typically known as the crow flies, right? So we've got some people here that that might appreciate that, but I guess most people actually don't want to get wet when they're trying to get to their local pharmacy, and people aren't crows. And there's a blog post. If you type that into Google, you'll probably find a blog post that's been written by one of our esteemed colleagues. It's well worth a read. Okay, so what do people do? Well, they drive motor vehicles, not just cars, vans, lorries, etc. So what we're seeing here is this is an isochrone using a 10-kilometre distance from this point in Harwich. So you can see this is the accessible stuff. It's not covering any of this. But do people drive 10 kilometres or do they drive for 10 minutes? This one here looks very similar, but this is 10 minutes of driving, and so you can see over here that I've chosen this particular type to be motor vehicle and the speed is normal. A lot of these services provide you with very fine-grained control over the ability to set speed limits, and a lot of this data comes from OpenStreetMaps. And so if you contribute to OpenStreetMaps and you set speed limits of roads, then this information is using, or this display is using all of that information. People also ride bikes. That's how far you can get in 10 minutes on a bike, going 16 kilometres an hour, which is fairly slow, certainly not Tour de France speed. So maybe other people would be around here, but But people also walk, and that's how far you can get in 10 minutes walking at 5.4 kilometres an hour. Okay, so those are just some static screenshots. I'm hoping, how do I get this? Okay, so hopefully this will just load up, because this one, how do I get that to work, Don? My mouse has gone completely. Where is it?
It just pops up, push up, up. There.
Okay, so I'm going to do this for Harwich. So this is a little kind of demo that I built just to kind of help show some of this. So this is a service by, I think, Route 360, a JavaScript library. So maybe this isn't the way that we would want to present this to people, because JavaScript isn't the most accessible for people. However, it's an option and it was relatively easy to do. So this is showing us how far you can get walking within 15 minutes. If I go to transit, so interestingly, the data used for this transit is using train times. You can add additional information for this. So that's how far you can get on that train in 15 minutes. And that's leaving at this time, 10:32. So not only is it able to change the type of the mode of transport, and we can see how far we can get, so let's extend that to 30 minutes. So why this is over here, I don't know. Maybe there is a tunnel, maybe there's a ferry. I mean, that's not a train, but I haven't got control over this data, so potentially that's what's going on. So this is right now, so I can move this back to midnight, and that's as far as you can get in 30 minutes on public transport at midnight. Now, to me, this is something that is potentially incredibly useful for helping people get to where they need to go to at the time that they need to go to. So I'll just switch back. Ooh, didn't need to do that. Okay, so that's a very brief one. You can go there and have a bit of a play with it. I think it should work reasonably well. So this is what we're trying to do at the moment, trying to connect to people with accessible services. Not very well phrased, but basically we're trying to connect people to services that they can access, whether it's through physical impairments, or whether it's through transportation requirements, different times of the day, different transportation needs. That's pretty good, and that's certainly better. If we can do this now, that's better than what's available, I think, right now.
what could happen in the future. So earlier this couple of weeks, I think Joe went and spoke to some people about getting real-time waiting times of services. So potentially we've got the ability to combine the real-time travel time with real-time waiting times and present that as the time that it's going to take someone to get to that service and get the help that they need. And for me, that's pretty, that's pretty impressive, and something that I don't think that is kind of around at the moment. So I think that's probably, there's a few little references in there. Yeah, so there's some guy who's got a website called weirdo. He wrote this. He wrote this post.
Sigh if anyone wants to know.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Thanks for isolising me.
And yeah, I think
they all knew who that meant.
So we've actually got a guest speaker from ERS, Pabs and James. But we're going to do 5 minutes of questions of presentation so far. If anyone has anything they'd like to prove or ask.
On accessibility and people getting there under their own steam, what different sort of A/B questions have you done around that, and what different answers did you get? Like, because you said there you didn't get the response you thought it from. Can you get there on your own, or do you need to? Did you ask about, like, do you need assistance getting there, and what were
No, that's what we'll be doing next.
Oh,
So
right.
we've literally bombed through this. I think that's the second sprint we've been doing that.
Ah, cool.
So yeah, so the next thing we'll be doing, we'll be looking at what that language be. So when I was talking about sweating it, it will be about sitting with people, finding out what they wanted to say, what works for them.
We also found, I
think a few people in the usability lab have said, oh yeah, a friend could take me, a family member could take me, all of that. But definitely with the pop-up when we said getting there by yourself, what does that mean to you? And people literally said, me driving. Not I go round to a neighbour. Not it could have been where that surgery was, because they said a lot of their people drove, so we're going to do pop-ups in other places, because the usability labs we've done with people from other parts of Leeds who kind of literally walked to their GP surgery. So maybe that's different, but definitely when people saw that wording, the first reaction was me driving.
I think one of the other things to bear in mind is that we treat our prototypes like stimulus. They're not particularly precious. So if people come and they say, oh, that's wrong, here's a better way of doing it, that's why we do it. So it's we're on, that's our next sprint, is to get some answers to that, make something that works better for the people using it.
Yeah, it's all iterative, I'm just wondering how far you got through that and what the answers were. It's really interesting stuff.
We'll keep asking it.
Yeah.
The other thing on that page, which was, can you get there by yourself? The only answer when you click no is currently, okay, well, call 111, which is just a placeholder for now before we start sweating it. But one of the receptionists said, well, actually, why don't you stick a page up with a link to the pharmacies, because some pharmacies can deliver, they can prescribe over the phone and they can deliver to your door within the day. So that's something we might also be looking at.
That's what we're getting at with the headlights cone thing. You know, in different scenarios there could be something that's more convenient based on that person's needs, but we're getting there really quickly, which is good to see.
I'm going to push through. We've got a couple more questions.
Ian, in your presentation you talked about concerns around users not using the internet for health. Do we understand some of the reasons why that is? Because isn't this absolutely fundamental for what we're doing in this space?
I think we'll need to explore that more. I think you're looking 20 years ago people started shopping online, and then people have started trusting it for doing banking online, and people have started to do government. I think health is just an area where people just haven't thought of as a way of doing some kind of transactional stuff around health online. They understand banking, they understand shopping. I think it's an issue is GP, I want to walk there, I want to see a person, I want to tell them.
So that is very true if you want immediate care, isn't it? That's a big driver for health. But if you want to consume transactional services, we're going to have to make the same leap that banking's made. So we need to understand what are the stimuli, what are the incentives that get people thinking in that digital space as opposed to...
But that will be a trust issue to a certain extent, but that's certainly something that GDS needed to overcome from a government perspective, because not you know, everyone naturally wouldn't have leapt at doing their, you know, tax and everything else online.
And they still don't. I mean, I was in research like 6 months ago and sat there with people saying like, I don't trust the internet, and things like the talk leak and all that. They're all things that dent people's confidence.
Yeah, I mean,
details
for me, it's, you know, if you have that killer application that will drive usage, something that adds real user value, then you get the user experience. And that's what happened with banking, isn't it? Because you realise it's easier to use an online banking transactional service than it is to have to go to your bank and do it in person again. So we've got to find what those
some of the things
specific
we
transactional
heard was,
services are.
some of the things we heard in the lab was people are starting to use more online services, and the receptionist brought out, you know, a list of 20 people that had registered the week before. He said we're actually seeing an increase. Then at the same time, she said, well, people actually aren't interested in accessing their own health record. They just want to be able to do stuff.
So they're probably starting to reach a level where they're consuming information about health. Like if you say, oh, I don't do anything. Oh, yeah, I've been to NHS choices. So maybe to search up some symptoms and things like that. The idea of doing a login and transacting something and doing a search for a pharmacist and what the services are and stuff.
Sorry, I just really want to give James, because he's prepared a presentation at the time, so if there are any more questions, I think we'll come back to them after James has done his presentation. So just
up and down.
Up and down, yeah.
Alright, so I'll try, yeah. So many of you probably know who I am, James Hepworth. I used to work in Choices exactly a year ago actually today. I'm currently on the ERS programme and we're developing this thing called Patient Application Booking Service. So I'll give you a quick run through of what that is. I won't expect you know these two acronyms. Run through some technical spikes and user stories we've been doing in the last 2 weeks, and then next steps and questions at the end. So this is kind of the lead way on how you get to the service at the moment. So the NHS has something called a legal right to choice. So if you go to your GP, you've got a hernia or something like that, you get shortlisted for this, and this is printed out. You've got a unique booking reference number, and then how to book your appointment. So currently the most prominent on that form is phone, and our metrics show that 20% of people actually use the phone to book their appointment, 10% use the internet, which currently goes through to this page on choices. So you've got to go from there to there and then click on this clip arty looking kind of book online. It's not the greatest entry to actually get onto the application, so that's something we're working with Joe's team to try and make that a bit more distinguished. And then the other 70% of people are wondering are directly booked by GPs and other methods. And this is what it is, patient web application, that's PWA, this is the current existing system. So this was developed in 2002 I believe, so 14 years old now, and you can probably tell it's a bit old. And obviously back 14 years ago there was no kind of preference on any mobile phones or designing for users over screens, so that's kind of a design principle that was skipped 14 years ago. So this is what it looks like on a mobile device. As you can tell, it's just a zoomed out version of the current application, and it loads really slow, which is one of the other kind of areas we've been tackling, because basically it's got to parse all the code from the existing site. So that's what it currently looks like. This is just a quick kind of mock-up of what it might look like to get to the application in future in the new beta page at NHS.UK. So it's a clear start your journey here, but that's not finalised yet. I think this is kind of a good statement that we've been working off, and we know it's not a silver bullet designing for a mobile device, but if your site is good on a mobile device, it translates better to all devices. So like I said, there's other areas, page load, and then how we transition off. But that's a good statement that we've been working on. And then this is kind of a mock-up of our latest mock-up. And one of the reasons why that last statement kind of rings true is because when you design mobile first, it allows you to prioritise content ruthlessly, and it allows you to look at what can fit inside the screen limitations and bandwidth limitations. So one of the areas is content, and like Simon mentioned, we don't have a content designer either, but it's a big area. So these clinicians or hospitals, they get fed in from the database, so we have no control on kind of how long that stretches over, and some of them will stretch over 4 or 5 lines. So there's some work there that needs to be done to kind of bring that down. Another area is error messages. So on the current application, there's error messages that span 7+ lines, and they're just, you don't want to read them. And if that were on a mobile device, it would probably take everything up to the page fold, which is not the best impression. So that's a current mock-up of what the new service might look like. Oh, pointer. So technical spikes and user stories, I won't run through the entirety of them, but we use technical spikes to kind of uncover technical solutions to questions that we didn't know the answer to. And the first one, it's not really a technical spike, it's more of what do we know technically about our users, so then we can plan for stuff like browsers, operating systems, and see if anyone's actually using it on a mobile device, because it'd be a bit crazy to create one if no one's actually accessing it. So we put together some queries that pulled the information back, so the total count of people, this is going over 10-day production figures on distinct sessions on the login once they've logged through. So 88,000 logged through, 35,000 of which mobile usage and tablet usage, and then 52,000 desktop usage. So 40% are using mobile on the application currently over a 10-day window. So then we wanted to dig a bit further down and see what devices, what operating systems are using. So we put together this little graph. So of the devices on the mobile, for Apple you can't really identify what device they're on, because they can obviously have different operating systems. But the most prominent was 9.32, which is the previous version with 12,000 hits, and then the latest version, which is 4 times lesser, 9.33. And the one thing we assumed going into this alpha stage, our product owner was happy with testing on the mobile devices we had available, which consisted of a set of iPhone 4s, and pointed out that's probably not the best option, but indirectly through this kind of research you can identify that iPhone 4s would have the latest operating system 7.12, because Apple had continued supporting them. So it probably would have gone down as one of the worst testing strategies to date, because we'd have been testing on 1.8% of the users. And then surprisingly, you can actually map a device to a Samsung string, so there's SMG920F, which is an S6, and that was the most popular Android device hitting the application. So quite a long way off Apple. But from that research, we've procured more devices in order to manually test. Worthy mentions for technical spikes. We had a whole theme around traffic flow and partitioning, how we're going to partition off from the main application so we can push users onto the new beta site. So originally we're going to do that at the back end and like hard code it into the back end, but we thought that's going to be a bit painful if we've got to write up new queries for new mobile devices. So we're currently looking at client-side tools such as Modernizer to implement that and identify what devices are coming on and then route the traffic off. So quick user story that we went through. As a user, I want the ability to select my appointment time so I can quickly locate the most relevant for my circumstances. So this is at the end of the journey really. I think it's step 7 out of 8. So it basically gives you a list of the dates and times of appointments available. And this is what it currently looks like, so this big long list spanning over 5 pages. And this is our current mock-up of where we see the application going. So we've got the buttons at the top which allow you to filter by morning, afternoon and evening, and in our user research they were used quite frequently as opposed to being able on the previous slide to filter by distance time, appointment time. They were never used compared to these ones. And we've got October in there, and there's no appointments in October, but we're still going to have it there. I'm not sure if we want to make it a bit more explicit to say there's no appointments in October, just so they don't think the code hasn't been...
Is this real data?
Is this real data? No, this is mocked up data at the moment, although we have...
I think that is the one with real data.
Is it?
Yeah, I got Ben to go away and get some real data and mock it up using real data.
Well, you know more than me, yeah, because
that's what I was winking.
You're working closely with Ben, so Ben's our designer on the project, and he's been putting some mock-ups together. So yeah, he sent me these yesterday.
Because originally the design had like loads and loads of stuff. In September, when we got real data in it, you saw like there's actually like a lot less to choose from, which focused how we do the design work.
Yeah, so there was some questions about whether this is the best option, because you've got Tuesday, 15, and whether maybe just to have like so you can scroll into it, like a little drop down, a little accordion or whatever. But yeah, it's real data.
It's really clear as well once you get real data in, so it's good value.
So that's the current mock-up with real data. I knew that. Some worthy mentions. We had a whole bit around this This one, as a user, I want an easily recognisable way of confirming the booking, so I don't presume it's complete and exit the application. So our metrics show that a lot of people get to like part 7 of 8 where you confirm the booking and then they drop off, which is a bit weird considering they've gone through this whole process. All they've got to do is click confirm and then they drop off. So we thought it was because of the way it was being presented, and unfortunately I don't have a screenshot of what it currently looks like. But we did look at pop-ups in Discovery, and then with the help of yourselves, we identified that's probably not the best option on a mobile device because obviously it might get blocked to the JavaScript or whatever. So we've looked at putting a separate page in the journey which looks a bit like this, and then just accept it. It's pretty clear. Check your details, change anything, accept. I think that's everything in a nutshell, really quickly. Any questions, feel free. I've only been on the project 4 weeks, by the way, so I might not know everything.
When you did that analysis of sort of OS versus device, it was obviously very iPhone and Apple heavy. I mean, I understand, I thought Android was the most popular operating system.
I think it comes from, well, the OS, there's a lot of Apple devices, and I think it's more iPad usage as opposed to mobile. So there's 12,000 people using an OS 9.33, but there's 12,000 people also using Apple iPad. So that's the most prominent market there. So
why do you think that is?
We haven't actually investigated why that is. Actually, we could have done. We failed to mention our user research team did a GDS presentation, which is a 200-page slide. So I'll link that around after if anyone wants to troll through that. But I'm not sure exactly why that is. Because it just dominates the mobile world, doesn't it? Really.
Sort of market forces.
Relating it back to our work, are we predominantly an iPhone or Android?
It's quite different circumstances.
Yeah,
so for this, you need to set aside a bit of time, I guess, to do it. So you can't just, I mean, you might just do it when you get in, you know, on the tube or whatever, but that's probably unlikely. This to me feels like it's something, it's going to take me 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll get home, I'll do it on my iPad.
Yeah.
Whereas what we're doing is, I want something now, wherever, I'll use my phone.
Yeah.
I think again, to balance that out, the number of people that access this on computers as opposed to like tablets with touchscreens and mobile touchscreens, there's still a massive discrepancy. We should add weight to what you were saying.
Could any of those Apple device stats be an Apple desktop?
An Apple desktop? I think they're pretty distinguished.
It's different OS.
So we have got a whole breakdown. I only put together the 5 most common ones, but we've got a whole table of all the options as well. But I think in the future, like having these in GPs and clinics and stuff like that, having like an iPad outside so you can book your appointment straight after, that might be useful.
That's a really nice, nice bit of service design.
Yeah. Instead of getting that piece of paper like I showed you, then going home, then finding the website, then going on choices, then going through. It's a long-winded process to actually get to the start of your journey. Anything else?
You enjoying it?
Enjoying it, yeah, it's interesting. I've never actually worked on a project from ground up, kind of just been lobbed in at the deep end. But it's nice to see this whole evolution of a product. And we're going down to London tomorrow to do some testing on our latest prototype, which is done on Heroku. So that should be interesting.
So that's in the NHS.UK lab? Like
I think so, yeah.
So they're linking up the prototype to do with hernias and hip replacements with part of that journey, the wider journey, is obviously booking the referrals and link that up.
Yeah, that hernia journey I think we could help with as well. Understanding that whole step through.
Thanks, James.
No problem.
That's great, thanks, James.
Does anybody have any more questions before we close show and tell about anything? Well, thanks everyone for coming. Stay around and chat to anyone individually afterwards, and send me any feedback that you like about the show and tell. So, and yes, I forgot to mention Chris earlier on, he's doing a recording that we're going to post on YouTube afterwards.
Bar mitzvahs, weddings, all available.
It's available for all sorts.
Very reasonable prices.
Yeah. Alright, cheers. And cut. Cheers.